Good morning, folks. Hope everybody's doing well. We'll give it just a minute or so to let people join in. And man, what a strong day we got yesterday. Was a very strong day for the system, very strong day for the market. And if you haven't watched it, go check out the recap video that I put together last night on our channel. Just kind of recapping how the day went. So yeah, if you haven't watched that yet, go check out the recap video that was posted last night to the channel. Kind of broke down how the day went on the market, and per the system, we jumped around to a number of calls and kind of saw how they interacted with their beast and made for some good trades yesterday. But overall, ES held pre-market low, bounced at the squeeze bottom yesterday, took off firing through 1 and 2 to the top of the 4 hour. The 4 hour is now opened up and fired per the watch list. We no longer have our 4 hour. So yeah, after we got above this 44.89 key level that I marked, held it for a while, slipped it a little bit after hours, but now we're back above it and we keep bouncing at it to try to continue this trend. So the key levels you'll definitely want to watch around open is that 44.89, which pretty much aligns with VWAP now. We do have the daily 15 here at 4,500, along with a 30-minute squeeze top and yesterday's high. So some definite magnets that I think we'd want to test live. And we'll see if we get through those to basically get up to the daily 21 at around that 45.20. If we can't get through these key items, we might have to go back down to test this 30-minute squeeze bottom. But if that does not hold us up, we'll probably go test the daily 8, maybe even as low as a daily 200 at 44.31. So yeah, we've got some pretty good targets up and down today, with the top right now being the daily 21, getting back to that. You know, just let's step out actually and just look at the daily. You know, just to kind of get an idea that we sold off from the daily mean, went past the third ATR, the third Keltner, right? Found our footing, bounced back, and here we are arriving back at the daily mean. So we've got our reversion to the mean after this, you know, short-lived bear sell-off. Now, as we get back to the mean, we have to see what happens. Do we start going long for all-time high? We can. The market's been very strong. Can we fill this gap to the 50 and it propel us into all-time high? Yeah, that can happen. But I'm not going to start placing bets right now saying that that's what's going to happen. We have to watch and see, especially as we get to the daily 21. You know, just like when we're in a very strong bull market, Every time we pull back to the 21 or the 50, it's a good continuation play for further rally. Well, now that we're underneath all these things, as we pull up to test them, same thing, it could be a continuation for more selling. Or we could just settle and go sideways for a little bit, kind of letting all of the moving averages and indicators smooth out and start to come together. So we'll have to see what happens. Can we get through the daily 21, creating basically a vacuum between the 21 and the 50? A lot of times when these moving averages move up farther apart like this, get below, the 21 below the 50, once we reclaim the 21, it's called a vacuum play, where it just pretty much beelines it to the 50, kind of closing that gap. But, got to see how we deal with 4,500. Got to see how we deal with this little micro zone when we get to it. At around 4,600. But overall, let's move back down time frame. For long plays today on ES, or for, long plays today on the market, want to see us hold above this 4480. We also have a 1 hour that's starting to settle in around us. So yeah, we definitely have some key levels to watch today. We're already above this 4,500, which aligns with the daily 15. Gotta watch yesterday's high and this zone built around it on our way up to these squeezed tops and the daily 21. If we reject any of those, we might be headed back down. Test the squeezed bottom. That's 4480, 4470, and the daily 8 down at 4450. We still have our 200 down at 4431 too. So, so you'll hear me sometimes refer to a liquidity zone. Usually I'm talking about a zone that you can make between daily moving averages. So we have a liquidity zone between 4431 to 4450. And we have another one up here between the 15 and the 21, between 4500 and 4521. So two big key zones created around the daily moving averages. We could easily hit the top zone, fall to the next zone, move, and just bounce in between them for a couple of days. We do have a lot of earnings coming up. We have AMD after the bell today. Let's just pull up the earnings schedule real quick. It's worth looking at before we go through the full prep. And just so everyone knows, this does get posted in our earnings section under prep. So these tweets come in from Earnings Whispers. But this week we have AMD after the bell, PayPal, Google, Starbucks. Let's see. None other that I'm really looking at on that list. And then when we go into Wednesday, we've got Facebook, Spotify. We have more, but most of these names I won't really have a huge interest in. There's Activision, Amazon on Thursday, Snap, Pinterest. We could see some interesting sympathy plays on ad companies, depending on how these earnings go. Don't forget about Skechers. I'm joking. Don't worry about that. So yeah, definitely big earnings this week. Keep an eye on as we arrive back at the daily mean, depending on how these earnings go, depending on if they sell off like they have been on earnings, we could be heading back down. But it's also a good point to propel back up. So, ES basically flat, and Q is up the most, so it's pretty much leading again today like it was yesterday. And Q arriving back at a nice big liquidity zone here with the daily 15 at this, we'll just call it 14,880. With the daily 21 just above 15,000. I'm sorry, daily 200, and then daily 21 up at 15,045. So again, very big liquidity zone here that we could just get to the top of and bounce around while we figure out if we're going to move above the daily mean up here at this 15,050, or if we reject it and head back down for more selling. Definitely a key moment in the market to see, do we return to more profit taking and selling for a overall larger correction, or if that was all that we needed to continue this bull rally that we've been in. So, levels to keep an eye on today. See how we deal with this 15,000. We do have this 30-minute 1-hour squeeze that we are going to open near the top of. So I wouldn't be surprised today if we open around the squeeze top, we reject it and fall back over to hit some overnight lows and squeeze bottoms before we ultimately go higher and hit the mean. But can we just push right through these squeezes and hit the mean and fall back into them without even firing them? Yes. There's plenty of times we can reach outside of the squeeze to hit some key level and then fall right back into it. So there's a couple of scenarios to watch for today. If tech's going to lead, has to get through its squeeze and back to the mean. Rejection here can mean going quickly to the bottom just to shore up all of this, price action where buyers would be sitting and to take back off to the mean. Or we just push straight through to the mean at open. Looks like the ready's pretty flat. Had a very nice day yesterday on the ready. But it's still got some work to do to get back to the mean up at 2072. Given that it has an ATR of about 64, it can definitely get there today. So we'll see if the ready is still going to get love, if small caps are going to keep pushing. YM was definitely a bit of a lagger yesterday, but finally did get going with the market. It's now above the 200, very key level here, right around that 34,900. And yeah, it's basically back to the daily 21 as well, already tapped it overnight. So very key here on YM. Does it stay up in the zone now that it's back to the daily mean? If it starts to dive below that 34.9, it's going to be a pretty big tell, and the market will start to slip as well. But it is between the daily 8 down here at 700, the daily 21 up here at 3550, 35,050 we'll call it. So back to the daily liquidity, could just chop here, could break through to continue upward. or reject to head back down. Did basically fire all the higher time frame squeezes to the upside now. So hopefully that momentum can carry. And now we'll start diving into some specific names. And feel free to drop any names you want me to take a look at in the chat. Apple moving nicely. Already had earnings and they bought it up and kept it up. So all in all, looks like Apple wants to kind of lead. So great gauge. It's basically looking like it wants to just slow grind all the way back up. But one thing to keep an eye on is we don't want it to outpace tech too much. That's this. We do have that all-time high of 183, and we're moving pretty quickly to get back. Apple was above its daily mean first, kind of for tech, and once above it vacuumed to the 50 like we talked about. I know it's kind of hard to see. There you go. Like in one day it vacuumed from the 8 through the 21 to the 50, held the 50 and kept going yesterday. The reason I say we don't want Apple to outpace tech is if it moves too quick and fast up here, it could reject this zone around all-time high first and kind of slow down tech's rally, right? But overall, just if it can keep a nice slow grind, it is already up at above the first daily Keltner off the mean. So keep an eye on Apple. Great gauge overall. We covered in the video I posted, I mentioned at the beginning of this, if you go back and watch the review video for yesterday, these Apple calls were very decent trades. They weren't completely in the money when the day started, but now they are. And the system played out very well with the beast and the burger. So definitely something to review. But we'll see if Apple can try to keep trudging along. The next daily Keltner is basically up at 179.5. So we'll see. Does Apple want to keep pushing to try to get up to the second Keltner, or does it want to fall back to the mean, which would also cause tech to, maybe go sideways. But we have this key little zone down here that I built between 171.30 and 172 to keep an eye on as a target to the downside if Apple does want to roll a little. But if it wants to keep pushing, we'll see if it can get all the way back up to the next Keltner and this zone around all-time high. AMD reports earnings today after the bell. Had a very nice recovery and snap back off of this 100 level. And already up pushing 117 this morning. So we have the daily mean up above at 122, 124. They report earnings after the bell, so probably not going to touch AMD today, but you could see some sympathy moves in the rest of chips. NVIDIA, pick your chip, the flavor you like. Now that we're back above this 114, want to see that hold on AMD. We'll see how earnings goes, but the next two key levels I have is that 122.5 and this 140 to get back to, which is basically, as you can see, also going to be the daily 15 and 21, creating a little zone right at that key level, and the daily 50 right back at our other key level. And, back to the downside, definitely that 105, 100 level to see how earnings goes and which way we go. Amazon had a decent recovery to get back to 3,000. That's the daily mean, up above at 3041. Well, the mean, sorry, at 3075-ish, we'll call it. Which, Amazon could actually hit today, no problem. And then kind of chill in this zone between 3073 and 3042. So Amazon going to be a nice tell as well if it can get back above the daily mean, or if it rejects and we head back down. It's got tons of weight in tech, so we'll see what we get. But definitely watch. If we do roll back over the first Keltner down at this 2961-ish, and the daily 8 at 2930. Let's see, Facebook. Facebook held that 294, 291 zone very well in this sell-off. 1, 2, 3 times. And it also kind of aligned with the higher time frame squeeze bottoms that we tapped and took off, arriving back at the daily mean. They report Wednesday after the bell, but we did make some good predictions on those Facebook 310s, 315s, all the way down to 300s that played well off their beasts. Again, if you haven't seen it, go watch the video from last night. I did pull up each one of these strikes to kind of show how it interacted with Beast and the burger, and provided some great trades, even on an earnings week. Facebook, it's not such crazy prices. They will be elevated, but, there was still some, $3 to 18 kind of plays. Some definitely great trades that we covered and predicted through the system. Let me step down to a lower time frame here. Facebook definitely looking strong. Pre-market and already back to the 21. So let's see if it tries to keep pushing or if it kind of gets hung up here and goes sideways into earnings. If it rolls back, definitely watch the 310 and the daily 8, which is at 306, 308-ish. Google. Gapping up above the daily 21. And looking pretty strong as well. So XLC is looking pretty strong today. Google, Facebook, that kind of thing. We'll see if Google will give us a pullback before it keeps going. But they also have earnings tonight after the bell. So definitely going to wait to see what those premiums look like come tomorrow. I think there could be some awesome trades in Google. Wouldn't be surprised if the day after earnings they don't do much and then pick it up Thursday, Friday for the day late earnings play. But let's see, definitely keep an eye to the upside. Our next Keltner up at around that 2800 level and the daily 50 at 2831. So those would definitely be the targets to the upside. But she might take a break, fall back to the daily 21 or the daily 15 or 200 or 8, which are kind of all right in this area between 2700 and 2650. So I think she could try to push. We'll see how earnings go, but wouldn't be surprised if she had a kind of a magnet move back to this liquidity pocket between 2650 and 2700. Microsoft earnings also already been reported. Went well. Been moving up. I know some of us played the 300s, 305s, 310s last week and this week's expiration. Even though we've started to fire these higher time frames up, it's kind of been slow and stalled, and we are starting to slip back into, yep, we are in a 4-hour squeeze here. Still on Microsoft. Just because we, started to fire these things up, then we basically went sideways on Microsoft yesterday while the market kept trudging. So, tight range here for Microsoft. Definitely keep an eye on the 305 puts, 310 puts, which are pretty close to the current price action. And maybe even as far down as the 300s, but that's pretty far. But yeah, definitely going to keep an eye on the 305s. And to the upside if we can start to push back to 315, 320 on Microsoft. Netflix has had a really good recovery off of that sell-off from 372 to 434 in about 2 days' time. Again, in the video last night, I covered some of these key call strikes that are now all in the money. From Friday when they were very far out the money, basically woke up to the 400 in the money, and then it skyrocketed through the 410 and the 420. But all of these played very well off of their beast zones. I would definitely review these. And I know the system is new to a lot of you guys, and Netflix got sold off pretty hard after earnings. And a lot of times after a hard sell-off after earnings, you kind of take a step back and see what the stock's going to do. But we did see the market start to recover, and we saw a lot of those key calls hitting our beast zone. So sometimes you got to take a shot, you got to trust the system, and it paid off. I know a couple of folks did swing these 400s or 420s, which are now very plumbed, as we like to say, very in the money. Those 400s are at 27, even those 420s are at 13 from beasts around $1, so definitely go review those trades and those predictions that were made. But Netflix, very strong. Let's see, we do still have the daily mean up above at 474. We are basically back to POC right now, so we'll see if we hold here at POC, if it can propel us back up to the daily mean on Netflix. Definitely keep an eye out on the next Keltner 446 and this next key level at 460, which aligns with the daily 15. And to the downside, you want to see if we go back to 420, 415 on profit taking. But overall, Netflix very strong. Nvidia. Nvidia, sometimes we gotta recognize the trend of what's going on. Nvidia held VWAP, popped up to this 30-minute squeeze, a dip back to VWAP, and then, you know, and the 3-minute candle that got us to VWAP, the next 3-minute candle got us right back above and right back to highs. So you got to recognize the strength when it's there. But Vidya had a nice strong day, back above that 240 key level, and pushing pretty much almost to 250 here. After hours, and I'm sorry, yep, after hours, and then now pre-market above the 250. There we go, and pretty much arriving back at the daily mean. So, wow, what a recovery from 212 back to 250, the daily mean, and POC right at 251. Again, all the NVIDIA calls we were watching now in the money, off of the beast zones. Definitely go review these. NVIDIA doesn't report again for another week or so. So definitely going to be a main focus. We are back at the daily mean, just like rest of tech. Let's see how it goes. To the upside on NVIDIA. Do have this to 58.89, psychological 260 level, and then first Keltner up at 270. But if we can't get through the daily mean, let's see if we fall back to 249. And we've got the daily 8 and the first Keltner down at around this 236, 237. So definitely want to see it hold this on a pullback, 236 to 240 for you know, more continuation. But we're already back at the daily mean. We'll see how it goes. Gonna go ahead and just skip down to Tesla. Again, this was another great example of, on Friday, you know, hitting some key levels. The daily 200 held it, ran up and came all the way back for a retest. That was kind of your sign to try to go long on Tesla. 900s, and now the 950s pretty much in the money. And they played well off of the B zones. Reviewed the 950s in the video last night. Definitely go check out, but for about $3 to 21, and probably gonna open a little higher now too. Tesla still has the daily 21 up at 978. So we'll see if we can get through 950 to try to make a journey up to 975, 978 range, the daily mean, and overall at 1000 psychological level. And if it rejects or falls back, we have the daily 8 back at 920, and we still have that 200 all the way back at 815, but that's pretty far. So yeah, if we roll back over, watch the 920 to this 906 level. Like to see that hold to play more upside if there's any profit taking. And you know, SPYs and QQQs we can cover, but they're going to look very similar to everything else we've been watching. Almost back to the daily mean. We'll see how it goes. Also got the daily 200 right there between that 365 and 367. If we reject there to roll back over, we have the daily 8 and the first Keltner down at around this 355. So since today's not a 0 day, I'd be watching the 360s, down to the 355s, as well as the 365, 368s, 360, or 370s. On the Qs, we do have our 30-minute and 1-hour squeeze to setting a range today. Bottom of which is at that 360. So if we can't get through this 364 to 365 and roll back over like we are kind of doing a little bit here pre-market. Come on. There we go. So if we can't get through the top of this squeeze, fall back to and through this zone, we might see the bottom around these levels. If we get there, I'll probably switch to go long or a continuation off of this run. We'll look at SPY. Going to all be very similar. SPY, can we get through this 350 to 351.5? Squeeze top. To keep going up to, well, we're pretty much at the daily mean. So we could push through early, tap the mean, and fall back into these squeezes. We could reject, fall first, and then make the run up. We'll just have to see. But we've got the squeeze top and bottom as a good guide today on most names. Arriving back at the daily mean. Do we stay here for a second and go sideways? Do we push through and continue the rally? Or do we reject and head back for more profit taking? We'll have to see. We have some key earnings the next couple of days. It's going to make for a fun week and set the tone for the rest of February. So I don't know about you guys. I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to have a great time and an epic month. I'll see you guys in the chat. Hopefully you found this helpful. And yeah, good luck today.